Dave Revsine, Gerry, DiNardo, Howard, Griffith. We are at Camp Randall Stadium. Just had a chance to watch Wisconsin practice, and it seems like nationally, whenever anyone talks about Wisconsin this year, the first thing they're talking about is the schedule, and with good reason. It is absolutely brutal. It starts with LSU at Lambeau Field, which is a great intersectional game. But here's where it gets really interesting, guys. It is the crossover games within the Big Ten, as their first three Big Ten games are all against teams from the East and against arguably the top three teams from the East in Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. The first two of those are on the road. So let's play a hypothetical here. This is a good team. We saw them practice today. They were impressive. They may very well be the best team in the West, but we saw who they have to play and how much more challenging it is than what the other teams in the West have to play. So let me ask you this, and Gerry, I'll start with you. Let's say Wisconsin, hypothetically now, wins all 6 of its games against teams from the West and loses enough of those crossover games that they no longer would represent the West in the Big Ten championship game by record. Should they still go?
Yes, if you're undefeated in your division, you should go. We've had this conversation years before this, so this isn't just about Wisconsin. So the championship game is supposed to be the best team in the East and the best team in the West. But outside the box way to decide who the best team in those two divisions would be if they have an undefeated record in their division. I'm not saying best divisional record. I'm saying there should be an exception to the present rule that if a team is undefeated in their divisional play, they should represent in the championship game. That would be a departure, but I think that's something to really consider.
Yeah, I think it would be tough for me to go in that direction because part of the crossovers, you need to be able to also put up your best teams to play in the championship game. And I think that, for me, is more important than an undefeated team. Because I think if you go undefeated and you win, say, 2 of those 3 crossovers, if we're talking about this year, I think it gives you a great strength of schedule, and I think it puts you in a better position to move forward in the championship.
Here's what's interesting, and I have to agree with Howard. I totally understand your point, and I agree with it in theory. I mean, your argument is this is supposed to reward the best team in the West, and you are clearly the best team in the West if you've beaten every other team in the West. However, I guess if we're playing hypotheticals here, let's just say it's Iowa. All right, if they're 11-1 and Wisconsin is, let's say, 9-3 or 8-4 and lost those crossover games and maybe lost LSU, I think your goal is to put your 2 teams in there that would have the best chance of playing in the college football playoff were they to win the game. And I think you'd be conceding if you put 3 or 4 loss or let's say a 3-loss conference team in there, that they'd never get to the college football playoff, and I don't think you want to concede that.
But according to your reasoning, why couldn't it then be either 2 teams from the West or 2 teams from the East? It's not really the 2 best teams in the conference against one another. Yeah. It's the best team in the East and the best team in the West. Because if it was the 2 best teams, it very likely could be 2 teams from the East or 2 teams from the West.
Right, but I think that it's going to be held against you if you're not a divisional champ. I think it's going to be difficult to get into the college football playoff because you're going to hear that argument. Well, if they're not even the champion of their division, are they really one of the 4 best in college football? Again, I hear what you're saying. I guess I just think as a league, you want to be in a position where we have 2 teams that have a chance if they win to make it through.
Right, but you're not putting the 2 best teams in the championship game right now. You know that.
I hear what you're saying. I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yes. And I'm saying it should be the best team in the East and the best team in the West. And the best way to find out who the best team in each division is the team that's undefeated in that division.
And I would not for a moment argue with you that they would be the most deserving team to play in the championship game. But I just still don't think that they're your best chance of making waves nationally. And in this day and age, you're trying to make waves nationally.
And from a fan's point of view, for instance, this year's Wisconsin fans, you'd keep them engaged the entire year.
There's nothing that you're saying.
Mitigate the crossover.
Do you disagree with anything you're saying?
Nothing.
There's nothing you're saying that either of us disagree with, other than we don't think that team should play in the championship. All right, we do this at every stop, so tune in tomorrow and see what we've got.